first off, what's different about coming here this year to compare to last year after a 12-win season?
Yeah, I think you can see what a difference a year makes already. There's probably double the amount of people that were here last year, and we got a good Nashville contingency here, so it's good to see all the Auburn fans, proud and wanting to come out and have a good night of fellowship together.
What do you think about opening the season at 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yeah,
hot.
Hey, it's going to be hot whenever you play in August 30th, and so it's good. I think it's good that we got a conference opponent. That's unusual for your first game, but that really gives your guys something to work for in the summer. They know there's a big game right out of the gates. It's important, not only because it's the first one, it's a conference game. It doesn't matter if we play at 3 o'clock or midnight, our fans will be there, so not worried about that.
What was your assessment of A-Day and the final week there of spring?
A-Day was awesome again as far as our fans go. I mean, you got the highest paid crowd again in the country, and on Easter weekend, I thought that was special. Our guys always get a boost going in the offseason from that. I mean, it was the same way last year. Our guys get to go out and kind of perform in front of the fans, show them what they've been working on, and then when they see that kind of support, it really gives them a boost, and to know that many people are behind them and believe in them. I thought as far as spring goes, we got better. We got a lot of things we can build on, and our guys can really take through the summer and work on their own and hopefully get better at it. And of course, we get a couple hours this year, which is a little different, so that'll be good too for some of the young guys. But we got better. But like I told our guys, if we show up, 1st of August, and we're just as good as we were when spring ended, we haven't made the progress we need to make to be a championship team. So it's really kind of in our players' hands now how good they want to get over the summer. But I felt like a lot of our questions were answered, and we got better.
It's a very limited sample size A-Day. Obviously, you saw far more in practice, but Nick's completion percentage number is basically what it was in line last season, I think 59%. How close was he to hitting that 65%, 70% number you looked at?
Well, he was 64% 7-on-7 all spring, and he was almost 70% in team settings in practice. So, and 13 of 22, I think 1 or 2 was a drop. There was 2 or 3 that were caught right out of bounds. So, I think just from the poise and him knowing where to go with the ball on time, the throws that were made, you just saw a much more confident delivery, and so at the end of the day, 230-something yards, 4 touchdowns, you always want to take that. And I just think he did become more accurate over spring. If the numbers technically weren't the same on A-Day or different on A-Day, that just kind of is what it is.
What about receivers? I mean, drops were a problem last year. They curbed a little bit near the end of the year, but there were still a couple. What was it like in spring behind closed doors?
I think Coach Craig did a really good job. Those guys, they took pride this spring in being playmakers and attacking the ball. And a part of it, attacking the ball, you got to come down with it. And I think you saw guys grow in confidence, which helps the quarterback now. I mean, you got receivers that are willing to go make big plays like Sammy made in the A-Day game and other guys made in the game. That's going to give a quarterback confidence to give you chances and put the ball where you can make plays. But our guys focused hard on it. And I think where we were this time last spring, receivers was a big weakness, a big unknown. We had about 6 scholarship guys go through it. Nobody had over 10 catches hardly. And now you go into a season where it could potentially be a real strength of our football team. I think that just shows what a difference a year can make.
Have you started to sort out a pecking order after Sammy? Obviously, you have plenty of talent there, you alluded to, but have you found who the number 2 and 3 guys will be consistently?
We're still letting those guys get after it, compete. I mean, I think Duke had a good A-Day. I think Ricardo had a pretty good spring, top to bottom. Tony Stevens got better this spring. You could tell it was good for him to get all 15 days of those practices. Marcus Davis is steady. I don't know if it's going to be a 1-2-3 deal, if it's going to be a by committee deal. I don't know. Last year it was all Sammy, and then we had guys that made big catches at times, but statistically it was all Sammy. I don't know if it'll be the case this year, and it'll probably depend a lot on how people play us, but we feel confident that we're going to put almost 2 deep out there, that we're not going to put anybody out there that can't make plays, and so it may kind of be like running back was last year. It may sort itself out as the year goes on.
Nick's consistency, how does it compare to other quarterbacks that have been in the system in the spring? I mean, is that typical, atypical?
Yeah, this is the first time we've had a guy in the spring for the second time.
But any quarterback.
It was his first spring, but it was our second spring, and he'd already had a year in the system. So it was kind of uncharted territories for me and even for Coach to have a returning starter go through spring. So from that standpoint, there's no one to compare him to. But from guys in the past, it was there. It was up there, In fairness to the other guys, he had a whole season that they didn't have. It was their first exposure. But I thought he was really good. I really do. I really thought all the quarterbacks. Jonathan Wallace got better. He made throws at times in spring that I didn't know he could make. So he got better, and then Jeremy got better, and it was good for Jeremy to get 15 more practices too.
Have you found a spot you want to put Duke at, whether it's the 2, the 9? Have you found a specific spot yet?
No. We tried to leave him in one spot for the most part. Him and Sammy kind of played the same spot a lot in the spring, just because when you're new coming in, let's just let him learn the system and play.
Yeah.
Now, there were times in the spring game and others that we moved him around to get him the ball. We'll do the same with Sammy and Ricardo. We've done that in the past. And we did that to make sure we got those guys some touches. But I really don't know. I mean, really, because we feel like we got some good options there. And that's something we'll really hash out as coaches over the summer. Now that we got all the information, we can go back and look at the spring and kind of evaluate everything, not just A-Day, but everything we saw throughout the spring. Where are the guys fit best to get them all on the field and get them the touches they need? And, we'll try to lock guys in at a specific spot for the most part, but we'll still move guys around.
Running backs were equal heading into spring. They had a very equal spring as reps, equal stats on A-Day. What do you want to see separation in fall camp? Are you comfortable? I mean, you've been comfortable historically with equal guys.
Yeah. You know how it worked itself out last year. The deal with Corey, everybody knows what he can do. I think he got a lot better being an every down back this spring. At the same time, him and Cameron Artis-Payne really complement each other to the point that I don't know if you have to really determine between those two who's the guy. I think they're gonna, they're both gonna do some things the same, but they're gonna do different things too. Everybody knows what Corey can do. He can fly. He led the country in yards per carry last year. So certain things with Corey aren't going to change. He's going to do what he does well, but now he's added the element of can pass protect, can maybe run between the tackles. Cameron, he's a good all-around back. I mean, he's a good guy on first down all the way to third down. I think he's a good downhill runner. He'll be good, I think, like Trey was in the short yardage, but he's leaned up a little bit and showed some quickness and agility in space. So they can do a lot of the same things, but they still kind of complement each other well to where it's almost 1A and 1B, and it may never change, and Corey's a little more of a big play guy. Cam's going to kind of wear on you, and I think that's just probably the way that'll go.
With that said, when Brock Thomas comes in, I mean, what does he have to do to even maybe see the field there early in the season?
It's always hard to put pressure on young guys coming in, but we know the ability he has, and really Cameron Petway too. And if those guys can come in, and we'll know in the first week of fall camp, they'll get the summer. They'll both be here in the summer, which will allow them to learn the offense with the guys. And, now we can meet a little bit with them in the summer, so that'll help younger guys maybe pick it up quicker. But the first week of practice, we'll know, because there's two things to young guys. Do they pick it up mentally first? They've got to be able to do that. And then how quick can they change to the pace and speed and physicality of the game at our level? And we'll just have to see. If they adjust well, then they'll be in the mix. If they don't, then they won't be the first that didn't. And I'll say this, Peyton Barber had a fantastic spring. It's unfortunate, he gets hurt on his first carry, because it would have been fun for the fans, and I know it was really disappointing for him to not get to do what he hoped he was going to do.
When you look back at last season and the amount of points you guys were averaging and yards near the end of the season, how do you improve on that? I mean, especially when you guys are wanting to be more balanced, you can try to lean on one thing and then it weakens you in another in a sense. How do you guys approach that going in?
Well, we just got to execute better at a higher level. We got away with some things at times last year, but I'll take the national championship game for example. We could have executed much better and really named our score in that game, and we didn't. We let them hang around, and we ended up losing the football game. From an offensive standpoint, if we had executed just at a higher level, there was plays here or there that maybe even the average fan doesn't see, that if we just executed, we stay on the field on third down, or it's not a bust and a sack or a throw, it's a touchdown, that could have blown the thing open. And so it's just a matter of our guys, if you want to be a great explosive offense, you got to bring it every day, every quarter, every play. It can't just be a hit and miss deal. And then the balance. We know how people are going to play us to some degree now. In our league, they're the best defenses, the best coaches. They get a whole offseason to prepare for a returning guy. They know they're going to stop something. And so that's why we worked on really, making sure we're balanced, because we know what we're going to have to do next year. It's not going to be line up and tell them it's coming and make them like it. We're going to have to be balanced.
You mentioned Peyton. Tim had spoken about this. Peyton comes out, mentions he has ADHD, has dyslexia, and how he copes with it. What have you had to do as a coach in working with him as far as just the offensive meetings and things? Tim talked about working on the field where there's an assistant, there's somebody by him on plays when he's not in. What are things you've had to do specifically?
Well, Tim's obviously primarily handled Peyton because he's in his room. We knew when we recruited Peyton, Peyton said, "Hey, Coach, this is how y'all going to teach me, because this is how I learn best." And everybody's different. not just Peyton. In my room, Nick learns different than Jeremy, than Jonathan, and I've got to, within some degree, sometimes communicate differently to get things across to guys. I think Tim's done a good job always having Peyton get mental reps when he's not in. Peyton's a visual guy. We know that. We knew that coming in. You're not just going to stand in there and tell him. You're going to have to show him. He's going to have to see it. He's going to have to go do it. And that's really good for everybody, but it's how he learns. And I think this spring, everything slowed down for him. You can tell he understands the offense now. He knows what to do. He's a great pass protector. He's a big downhill athletic kid. I just think he's got a lot of upside. And if he would have played in A-Day, we'd be talking about him a whole lot more. I think he's going to be a big surprise for us this year.
Do you ever think about being a head coach someday? Do you think about it?
Yeah, I think anybody that does what we do, that's driven, you have aspirations. And, if the right opportunity came, I'd love to someday. But you don't leave a place like Auburn on your own very often. And I'm really blessed to be here. Have a lot of returning players back, not just the quarterback and not just the backup quarterback, but other positions. We're still a pretty young team, and we feel like we're recruiting well. And we got a staff I enjoy being with, and I think we can sustain it for the long haul, not just have a good 1 year here or there. We can, Coach Malzahn and our staff, we can build the program, and there's a lot of fun things ahead that I'd love to be a part of.
Just hit on the offensive line for a minute, because obviously there was some personnel stuff. You guys were moving people around. We know that they were not starter changes. But how do you evaluate the offensive line as far as you had the 4 returning starters? Is Chad still looked at as the right guard? Do you look at Avery as a tackle and a guard? How does that sort?
Yeah, Chad's still the right guard. And I'll say this, I think we have a good problem in that. I feel like we have 6 starters. Now, ironically, you can only play with 5. But I think, so what we were trying to do is mix and match. So if in the season a guy goes down or this happens, and maybe see where people fit best. But, Sean Coleman and Pat Miller had great springs. Everybody talked about them competing at the left tackle, but, I don't know who we're going to go with at left tackle per se, but, we've got 6 guys, 4 returners, Sean and Pat, that we feel like are, without a doubt, SEC starter material. Yeah. And so now it's about us finding the right mesh and how we want to manage that, and that, honestly, even on our end, that remains to be seen. But, you got 4 returning starters in Kozan, Reese, Chad, and Avery, from a team that led the country in rushing yards and didn't give up a lot of sacks. You don't want to disrupt that if you don't have to. And I feel like Pat and Sean really competed well. I feel like that, there's going to be a lot said about Greg leaving, but we don't think there's going to be a huge drop there. We got a lot of confidence in both those guys, and I hope the other 4 get better. And so, with JB coaching them, I wouldn't be shocked if we're just as good or maybe better.
Coach Malzahn's talked about being faster. Does part of that playing faster go with throwing the ball a little bit more to where you can be able to get up to the line a little bit faster?
It could. I think the number one thing that has to do with that execution. We averaged around 74 plays, I think, last year. We'd like to be a little closer to 80, but if you're efficient, in the 70s is pretty good in our league. But it just goes back to, in every game, there was probably 3 or 4 plays that year 2 we should execute better. It's going to keep us on the field longer, and if you move the chains, you're going to get more plays. It wasn't necessarily the tempo. It was just we got to stay on the field and convert more third downs. And the games we did that, we had higher plays. So I think if we execute better first, I think year 2 in the system, our guys are just going to operate it faster in general. And then we've also stressed that we want to go faster. That's got to be a big part of our edge and what we're about.
I had to ask, because it came up with Coach Malzahn tonight, are you expecting Shane Callahan to remain with the program, or have you heard anything?
You know what, Coach will address those. I'm going to stay away from those because I don't know what's going to happen, but whenever the changes are made, Coach will be the one that handles addressing those.